The rain had been falling for hours. Ana de Armas stood by the window of her small rented room in Venice, staring at the water dripping down the glass. It was quiet. Too quiet for someone who had once walked red carpets and stood beneath lights that seemed brighter than the sun. Her fingers trembled as she held a letter in her hand. It was her final decision. She had written it the night before. No more movies. No more casting calls. No more auditions that ended in fake smiles and soft apologies. She had left Los Angeles months ago after her latest film had been canceled without warning. Not even a phone call. Just an email. One short sentence that shattered her. The news spread online, and with it came the comments, cruel ones. People mocked her choices, said her career was over. She tried to stay strong, but inside something broke. Her agent stopped calling. Her team fell silent. And now, here she was, in a forgotten apartment, with leaking ceilings, and no furniture but a mattress on the floor and a wooden table. She hadn't told anyone where she had gone, not even Keanu. She walked to the tiny table and sat down, her hands brushed across an old sketchbook. It had been years since she had drawn anything, but last night she tried again, not for anyone else. Just for herself. She flipped to the first page and stared at the pencil outline. It was a scene from her childhood, memory of her grandmother holding her hand at the beach in Cuba. A knock at the door broke the silence. She froze. No one knew she was here. The knock came again. Gentle, not urgent. She slowly stood and walked. To the door, her heart pounded. When she opened it, her breath caught. It was Keanu Reeves. He stood there in the rain, drenched, holding a brown paper bag and a thermos. His hair was longer than usual, and his eyes looked tired but kind. He didn't say a word. He just gave a small smile and held the bag toward her. "I thought you might be hungry," he said softly. She stepped aside without speaking, unsure if this was real or some kind of dream. He walked in, removed his wet jacket, and placed it gently on the back of her only chair. He didn't look around or judge the place. He just opened the bag and pulled out warm bread in 2 cups. "You disappeared," he said, as he poured tea into the cups. And I waited. She sat down, unable to hide the tears forming in her eyes. "How did you find me?" Her voice cracking. "I didn't," he said. "I just guessed." They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, she looked at him and whispered, "I gave up, Keanu. I'm done chasing things that hurt." He didn't flinch. He didn't try to talk her out of it. And instead, he pulled something from his coat pocket. It was a small folded paper. She recognized the handwriting. It was hers. She stared at it, stunned. "How do you have that?" "You once wrote it to yourself," he said, "when you were young. You left it in a drawer in the studio. I found it by accident." Her hands trembled as she took it and opened it. "Dear future me, if you're reading this, please don't quit. Please remember why you started." Ow. Her breath hitched. She had forgotten about this letter. She had written it at 19. It's full of hope and fire. Keanu's single quotes is low and steady. "I never forgot who you were, Anna, even when the world did." She looked away, ashamed. "I have nothing left," she said. Keanu leaned forward and whispered something that made her freeze. "That's not true. Because I built something, and it's for you." She looked at him with confusion. "What do you mean?" "I'll show you tomorrow," he said with a gentle smile. "But for tonight, eat, rest. Let the world wait." And for the first time in months, she nodded. They sat there in the candlelight, rain still tapping against the window. 2 old friends, one broken, one holding a secret, but both still alive, still hoping, still waiting for something more. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The air was cold, but the light coming through the thin curtain was soft and golden. Anna sat at the table, still holding the old letter in her hand. The teacups were empty now. The bread was gone. But something had stayed with her, a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Keanu was still asleep on the floor, using his coat as a blanket. He had offered to sleep by the door so she could feel safe. He didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He just stayed. Anna watched him for a moment. She remembered all the times they had crossed paths over the years. Red carpets, film sets, quiet moments behind the camera. He had always been kind, always calm, But last night, it felt different. More than just a friend. More like someone who saw the part of her even she had stopped looking at when he stirred awake. He stretched and gave her a sleepy smile. "Good morning," he said gently. She nodded. "I didn't sleep much." "Me neither," he replied. "But we don't need much sleep today. We've got a place to visit." Yana tilted her head. "What place?" He stood up, brushing his hands together. "You'll see." They took a long walk through Venice. The streets were quiet, and the sky above looked like a painting. Keanu didn't say much. He just walked beside her, sometimes pointing at things. An old bakery, a stone wall with ivy, a cat sleeping on a windowsill. "I used to come here years ago," he said softly, "when I needed to think." "Why here?" she asked. "Because it's forgotten," he answered. "And sometimes that's what we need to find ourselves." After an hour, they stopped in front of a small abandoned theater at the edge of the city. The windows were dusty. The paint on the doors had peeled, but the name above the entrance was still visible, though faded. Il Teatro dell'Anima. Anna stared at it. The Theater of the Soul. Keanu nodded. "I bought it 5 years ago. It was supposed to be restored and reopened. But I kept it hidden." "Why?" she asked. "Because I didn't know who I was building it for," he said. "Until now?" Anna stepped closer. Her fingers touched the old wood. "You built this for me?" Keanu looked at her carefully. "You told me once, back when you were starting out, that your dream wasn't fame, it wasn't awards. It was to create something honest, something that made people feel less alone. This place, it's for that, and for you." Tears filled her eyes. She didn't know what to say. He took out a key and opened the door inside. The theater was quiet and full of dust, but the bones of it were strong. The seats had been replaced. The stage had fresh wood. There were boxes of old costumes and lighting gear stacked in the back. It wasn't finished, wasn't perfect, but it was waiting. Anna walked down the center aisle slowly. She climbed onto the stage. Memories hit her like a wave, the smell of curtains, the echo of footsteps, the feeling of light hitting her face. She turned and looked at Keanu, who stood watching her from the doorway. "Why now?" she whispered. He shrugged. "'Cause the world doesn't need another star. It needs a voice. And yours isn't done yet." Anna stood there, heart pounding. "I'm scared," she admitted. "That means it matters," he said. "What would I even do here?" she asked. Keanu stepped forward and handed her a folder. Inside were scripts, short ones, scenes, poetry, monologues, written in soft pencil. Some were hers, things she had written years ago and forgotten. Others were his. "We make something," he said. "Just you and me. No press, no noise. Just truth." Anna laughed through her tears. "You're crazy," Keanu smiled. "Yeah, but I believe in you." Her hands gripped the folder tighter. For a long time, she thought she had lost her voice. But here, in this quiet old place, surrounded by dust and dreams, something began to wake up inside her. Something real, something brave. She looked down at the stage and back at him. "When do we start?" she asked. Keanu grinned. "Right now." So they began. The days passed slowly. Each morning, Anna arrived at the old theater with a small notebook in her hand and a new fire in her chest. Keanu was always there before her, sometimes sweeping the stage, sometimes fixing a broken light, sometimes just sitting in silence, reading through one of the scripts. They didn't tell anyone. It was their secret. The city outside kept moving, unaware that inside this forgotten building, two souls were quietly stitching something back together, something fragile, something pure. Anna spent her hours rehearsing lines she had once buried deep, monologues she had written in the early days when she was still filled with dreams. Her voice shook at first, her body unsure. But Keanu never interrupted. He just listened, his eyes always soft, never judging. Then one evening as the sun slipped low and painted gold across the stage, he handed her something different, a scene with no title, just two characters. No names. She read through the first page, then looked up at him. You wrote this? He nodded. It's about us, she said quietly. Sort of, he replied. But it's also about anyone who's ever wanted to be seen. They rehearsed it together. At first it felt strange. She stumbled over her words. He forgot a few lines. They laughed. But then something happened. A moment of silence between. Their lines something honest in the way their eyes met. A truth neither of them had spoken aloud when the scene ended. Neither moved. Anna sat down slowly on the edge of the stage. You could have shown this to the world, she said. You could have put it on any screen. Keanu leaned back against a pillar. I didn't write it for the world. I wrote it for you. Her heart thudded in her chest. She opened her notebook and flipped through pages of messy thoughts and half-written ideas. Her hands stopped on one line she had scribbled 2 days ago. What if coming back to life isn't loud? What if it's quiet and gentle and no one claps? She read it out loud without thinking. Keanu looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. Then maybe we've already started. The next day they painted the front door, just a soft coat of white, enough to cover the peeling pieces. Anna laughed as she dipped her brush into the can and left streaks across her arm. Keanu smudged some across her cheek in return. They looked like kids, like to people who had never been burned by the world, but they had, and that made it more beautiful. By the end of the week, they had turned the theater into something more than a space. It was now a room filled with breath, stories, energy. They invited no one, just each other, and still felt full. Then came the night that changed everything. Keanu arrived with a camera, small, old, handheld. What's this for? Anna asked. For us, he said. Let's film one of the scenes. Just one. We won't post it. We'll just keep it, like a moment frozen. They picked her favorite monologue. She stood on the stage. Lights dim, voice steady. Keanu held the camera, didn't say a word. When she finished, she felt the silence stretch. He lowered the camera slowly, his eyes shining. You're ready? He said. She shook her head. No, not yet. He stepped closer. You are, even if you don't believe it. She looked down. I'm scared the world will laugh again. He gently lifted her chin. They might, he said, but you won't break this time. Anna closed her eyes. For the first time in months, her chest didn't feel tight. The weight was still there, but now it had a name. Fear, doubt, loss. And beside those things, something else had returned faith. Not in the industry. Not in famed faith in herself. Keanu reached into his bag and pulled out a small wooden box. I made something, he said. He opened it. Inside was a necklace. Nothing fancy, just a small silver charm shaped like a theater mask, one smiling, one crying. Why? She whispered. Because this place is you, he said, and you're both. She took the necklace with trembling fingers. Thank you, she said. Keanu nodded. Thank you for not disappearing completely. She looked at him, eyes full. I almost did, he smiled, but you didn't. And that night, when she walked home under the stars, she touched the charm around her neck and whispered a quiet promise to the sky. I'll try again. The morning was colder than usual. Anna woke early. She wrapped herself in a thick scarf and stared at the necklace hanging from the doorknob. She had kept it close all night, afraid that if she let go, everything that had happened would fade away. Like a dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was real, the old theater. The dusty seats, the scent of wood and quiet hope. And Keanu showing up with nothing but kindness and faith in his eyes. Anna picked up the necklace, fastened it gently around her neck, and walked outside into the sharp winter air as she reached the front of the theater. She froze. The front door was open inside. The lights were already on. Keanu was standing on the stage, his sleeves rolled up, holding 2 large pieces of wood. Near him were freshly painted signs, hand-lettered, simple words in black dot. One said, Hope speaks here. The other, You're not too late. Anna smiled as she stepped inside. You made signs? She asked. Keanu looked up, grinning. I thought. The world could use a reminder. She looked around. The stage had been swept. Soft lighting hung like stars above them. "Are we expecting someone?" she asked. Keanu nodded slowly. "I invited a few friends." Anna's heart jumped. "Keanu, I'm not ready." "I told you, you are," he interrupted gently. "But they don't know they're watching something real. They think it's a small rehearsal. No pressure, just a few trusted faces." Anna took a deep breath. "Who?" she asked. "Some old friends. Director who once believed in you. An actress." "You mentored your first drama teacher?" Her eyes widened. "Mrs. Carlyle." He nodded. Anna sat down slowly, staring at the stage. "I don't know if I can do this." Keanu sat beside her. "You don't have to be perfect. Just honest." She nodded. That evening, as the sun dipped low, a soft knock came at the door. People trickled in, quiet, curious, respectful. They sat in the chairs Keanu had set up, whispering to each other. No cameras, no lights. Just humans sitting in silence, waiting. Anna stood backstage, her palms sweating. She could hear their voices. Her breath came faster. Keanu appeared beside her. "Remember the girl who wrote that letter to her future self?" Anna nodded. "She's still inside you." She stepped forward, knees shaking. Then from the stage, Mrs. Carlyle's voice called out softly, "We're proud of you, Anna, no matter what." Anna stepped onto the stage. Her eyes scanned the room. No one was judging. No one had their phone out. It wasn't a crowd. It was a circle, she began. The monologue she chose was one she wrote 2 years ago and never shared. It was about falling out of love with the world, finding a small crack in the darkness where light could still pass through. As she spoke, her voice grew stronger. She stopped trembling. Keanu stood in the back, watching quietly when the final line left her lips. The room was still. Then soft claps, not loud or showy, just real. Her old teacher wiped her eyes. A man stood and said, "Thank you. I didn't even know I needed that." Anna stepped back, overwhelmed. Something had shifted. Not around her, but inside her, after everyone left. She and Keanu sat on the edge of the stage. "I don't want to go back to Hollywood," she said. "Then don't," Keanu replied. "Let the stories come to you. Let them be smaller, truer." Turned to him. "What about you?" she asked. "I'm here," he said, "as long as you need." She looked at the room again. Not a theater, not anymore. A sanctuary. "Do you think we can make more nights like this?" she asked. Keanu leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. "Yes," he said. "I think this is just the beginning." Anna closed her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about awards or press or money. She was thinking about art and healing and truth and maybe, just maybe, love. The next few weeks passed like a quiet melody. Anna and Keanu spent every day inside the old theater. They painted walls, rewired lights, and wrote scenes together. Each morning, the scent of fresh coffee filled the space. Each evening, candles lit up the stage like stars. Word began to spread. Not through the media, not through social media posts or interviews, through whispers. Through people who had been there, who had felt something real, and told someone else who needed it. Anna didn't post anything online. She didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. One evening, as she finished a reading with a small group of students who had asked to watch, a young girl approached her in tears. "You made me want to try again," she whispered. I had stopped acting. I thought, it wasn't for people like me, and I knelt down, held her hand gently, and said, "It's for anyone who feels something and wants to share it." That moment stayed with her. Later that night, she and Keanu sat outside the theater. A blanket wrapped around their shoulders, a small fire crackling beside them. The wind was soft. The streets were silent. "Do you miss it?" Anna asked suddenly. "What?" Keanu said. "The noise. The premieres. The red carpets." He shook his head slowly. "I never loved those things. I only stayed because sometimes, behind the noise, there was a chance to say something true." And I looked at him. "Do you think this place, this little theater, Do you think it's enough? Keanu smiled. If we're honest here, it will be more than enough. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You saved me, you know, she said quietly. He didn't answer right away. After a long pause, he whispered, You saved yourself. I just made sure the lights were still on. The next morning, Anna found a box sitting on the stage. Inside were photos, old ones, from their first film together, behind-the-scenes shots, blurry selfies, handwritten notes. One note was hers. She'd written it years ago, folded it, and forgotten. If I ever lose myself, remind me who I was. Beneath it, Keanu had scribbled something in fresh ink. This is who you are now, stronger, softer, still shining. She held the note to her chest, tears in her eyes. Later that week, Keanu surprised her again. He had called in a small group of local musicians and dancers. Together, they created a single evening of performances, raw, beautiful, imperfect. They called it Night of the Forgotten. It was free. No tickets, no photos. Just people walking in and sitting down. Anna performed last. She wore a simple white dress and walked barefoot on stage. Her voice, calm and sure, filled the room with a story she had written herself about failure, silence, and what comes. After the fall, when it ended, no one clapped for a few seconds. Then the applause began. Soft, slow, real. Afterward, Keanu met her backstage. His eyes were shining. That, he said, was the best thing you've ever done. Because it was mine, she said, her voice trembling. He nodded. Because it was you. They stepped out into the cold night, the stars above like tiny promises. Anna looked at him. What now? She asked. We keep going, he said, and next week we open the door a little wider. She smiled. A little wider. Yeah, he said, just enough to let a few more people in. Keanu laughed. Careful, we might start something big. Keanu looked at her, serious now. Yana, we already have. And deep down she knew he was right. This wasn't just healing. Anymore, it was becoming a movement, and her heart was finally ready for it. Spring came quietly to Venice. Flowers pushed through cracks in the sidewalk, and sunlight danced across the canals like tiny golden footsteps. The little theater, once broken and forgotten, now stood strong and warm, not because of fresh paint or new seats, but because of the people who walked through its doors with open hearts. Anna stood backstage, staring into the mirror. No longer looked like the woman who had hidden in a small, damp apartment, clutching a goodbye letter to her career. Her eyes were brighter. Her shoulders no longer carried invisible weight. Tonight was the first public performance, not for critics, not for cameras, just for people who had written in, strangers from around the world who said her words had helped them survive something. She had invited them all. Some came by train, some by bus. Some walked from nearby streets, holding trembling hands and nervous hearts. The show was called The Soft Return. Anna had written every word. She stepped onto the stage. The lights were low. The silence was deep. She took a breath and began. The story she told was not of fame or success. It was about a girl who gave up and a friend who didn't let her stay lost. It was about dreams that shift. It was about love that is quiet and shows up in the rain with bread and tea. As she spoke, she saw people crying, smiling, holding hands. At the very end, she looked into the dark, where she knew Keanu was sitting. This story isn't mine alone. She said it belongs to everyone who thought they were finished. It belongs to the ones who are still trying. The crowd stood in silence. Then came the applause, soft at first, then strong, then loud enough to shake the ceiling. But the loudest sound was the sound inside her heart. Peace. After the show, she walked into the empty alley behind the theater. Keanu was already there, leaning against the brick wall, holding 2 paper cups of warm tea. He handed her one. You did it, he said. Anna shook her head. We did it. They stood in silence for a long time. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out something small. A key. What's this? She asked. It's yours now, he said. The theater. I put it in your name. She stared at him, speechless. Keanu. He smiled gently. You kept it alive. You brought people back. This place is yours. Tears filled her eyes. How? Do I ever repay you? He looked at her kindly. Just promise me you'll keep telling the truth. Anna took the key. Her fingers wrapped around it tightly, like it was something sacred. I promise, she whispered. They sat together on the back steps of the theater, steam rising from their cups, stars above. Hearts opened. Anna looked at the sky. Do you think we'll ever go back? She asked. To Hollywood, he asked. To that world? To the noise? Keanu sipped his tea and smiled. Only if it needs us, not the other way around. She nodded slowly. She wasn't chasing the world anymore. She was building her own. And it had already started with one broken door, one friend who believed. And one stage where real stories could breathe. The world might never fully understand what happened inside that little theater, but she did. And for the first time in a long time, Ana de Armas wasn't just surviving. She was home.